So, the other day, I watched the last episode of the new Netflix hype show, Adolescence. I was gonna sit down, record, and talk about it last night, but it was late. I went to bed, and it's still fresh enough in my mind that we can talk about it now. Episode 4 was completely unexpected, I would say. Not to sit on the fence, unexpected in an expected sort of way. It wasn't a court case, which I'd established by episode 3. I didn't think that was going to be the case. It didn't touch upon Katie's family or Katie's side of things, which I also assumed wouldn't be the case because of the nature of the show. We spoke about it last episode and touched upon it in episode 2, that it's showing that Katie's story thing is quote unquote, it's not important. I'm using that as in terms of that's how it seems it plays out in the real world when these horrific crimes happen. Everyone remembers the perpetrator, not the victim. And it's challenging that mindset. So I didn't think it would go into Katie's side of things. And yeah, episode 4 is almost like, again, if you live in America or you're a young person in this country, you probably don't remember, but they used to have TV plays where it was like not usually more than one episode. It might be TV special or anthology series that were about an hour long, and they'd play out a story with like minimal settings and minimal cast, and it was all about the acting. It was all about the acting and the story and the atmosphere it makes. And this episode was like a classic TV play. Followed the same format, the one shot format we've seen throughout the entire series. And this episode sees Jamie's family just trying to move on. It's set 13 months after the incident, and like I've done with every episode, let me just provide a brief synopsis. So it's the father's birthday. It's his birthday 13 months on from the murder. And it basically sees the family trying to be normal, trying to move on, trying to live their lives, trying to almost forget's a wrong word maybe, but just move on and just have a bit of normality and to just live their life, come to terms with it, come to terms with the actions of their son. They almost try and ignore him at times, to be honest. However, like the bogeyman, he creeps up, he comes back. He's there. The episode sees Mr. Miller's company van, because he's a self-employed plumber. It sees that being vandalised with the word nonce graffitied on the side. And it just sees us going through the motions of how he lives on his birthday. His interactions with his family, their interactions with him, trying to salvage the day after the vandalism, talking about the past a little bit, but not necessarily Jamie, just how they met, how Mr. and Mrs. Miller met, what they're going to do with the day, and just that sort of thing. It's just very simple. And you'd be forgiven for thinking it was just like a slice of life sort of thing, but there is a darker tone there. If I seem quite subdued in this episode, there is a reason. This is, in my opinion, the heaviest episode. Obviously, the context of everything we know from the previous episodes helps to cement that feeling, but yeah, it's a heavy episode. I'm not sure how long this is going to be compared to the other videos, but I feel like I was looking at my notes and there's just a bit less to talk about in this episode. It packs a very serious, very severe punch, but this episode is kind of all-encompassing. For example, where I said in episode 2, it seems like there's many different mini stories going on as they talk to different classes, different students, teachers, that sort of thing. Or episode 3, where it feels like a full psych evaluation, but we're seeing different aspects of Jamie's personality coming through. This episode was very much its own self-contained thing, and you needed to watch and follow the whole thing to create that broader picture. So just to carry on with the synopsis, the van gets vandalised. They decide to go to some sort of B&Q like place. I can't remember what it's called in the show, but to go and pick up some paint to paint it off. There, Mr. Miller ends up talking to a member of staff who is a young male, older than Jamie, probably 18-ish, maybe 17. And he gets talking to this lad, asking about where they're painted. And this lad's like, I know who you are. Some of us are behind your son, but set up a GoFundMe for legal costs, get a really good lawyer. There's loads of us who would help out. And he's a very incel-y character. You can tell Eddie Miller's absolutely disgusted. He's seen the footage, don't forget. He was Jamie's appropriate adult in episode 1, so he's seen the footage and he knows what his son's done. And obviously he's not very happy about it. So from there, things escalate more and more. Eddie, this is Mr. Miller, takes a paint out. There he sees some kids who had goaded him when he was outside after he'd seen his van had been vandalised. They goaded him. So he confronts them violently, grabs one of them, threatens to fucking punch one of them, tell him, you don't do this, giving him a load of shit. Meanwhile, some other kids across like a grassy bank, a patch of grass, they're filming it. He's threatening to leather this kid and he's throwing his bike. He asks if they did it and they admit they did it. So he sends this kid off and he's saying, don't do it again. And he's like, launches his bike and it's a whole powerful scene that I'll touch upon more in a little bit. Then he goes back to his van. He opens the paint lid and he just starts throwing this paint all over the van. He's just splodging it everywhere. And it's a really powerful scene. It's splashing against the screen. They then drive home with him and Lisa, and so on the journey home, Mrs. Miller's very upset. Mr. Miller's very quiet, very brooding. Manda Miller, she's upset in the car. She's crying. Lisa, who's a daughter, she's also crying. And then they get a phone call in the car, and it's just set up so well. So it has like the pretext of like, this is a phone call from His Majesty the King's prison service, like, that sort of thing. If you do not wish to accept this call, please hang up now. And you just know it's Jamie. Obviously it's Jamie, it's nobody else. It's his dad's birthday. Jamie sent him a card earlier on in the episode with like a drawing of his dad, and his dad's a bit like, yeah, it's good, but you can tell he's fucking crippled by like, this whole situation is taking a massive toll on him. So this phone call, it's crazy. You just sense it in the vehicle. You just sense it. And, he says he's going to change his plea from a not guilty to guilty, which just rocks everybody's world. Jamie's never admitted guilt. And I suppose this is him kind of admitting guilt in his own way, obviously for legal purposes. But, Eddie is very reserved. I think he's pretty disgusted by what his son's done and he's struggling with it, maybe even more so than the other two, because he is a male figure and he feels like he had more of a responsibility to that, and because he's seen the footage as well, don't forget. But Manda and Lisa are in the car, crying in the car. I think because, I said to Natasha, I think because deep down they were just hopeful. Don't forget, they haven't seen the footage. They've never seen the footage. I think they were just hopeful that maybe he didn't do it and his not guilty plea was genuine. Or maybe they were just hopeful that he'd somehow get away with it. I'm not saying that they were endorsing his actions. I'm not saying that at all. But, when it's your family, I feel like maybe they were like, he's going for the not guilty plea, he might not get sent down. Going for the guilty plea means less of a sentence when he is found guilty, but it means he's pretty much guaranteed to go to prison because he is admitting guilt. So it's a whole complex thing going on in just the cab of this van. They then get home and they talk about it, and then there is this really powerful scene after that. And it brought me to tears. I finally cracked right at the very end on the finish line. This one scene really did bring, like, I started tearing up. I had a bit of a cry. I cracked. I couldn't hack it. And it's where Eddie, Mr. Miller, goes into Jamie's room and tucks in his teddy bear into his son's bed, and he apologises to his son, and he says he should have done better, and he's crying as he does it. And it just sums up that whole adolescence thing. You've got this young boy who's going through puberty, sexually charged to some extent. It's about dating, and he's committed this heinous crime, a very mature thing to do. Nobody should do it, of course, but it's a very mature thing to kill someone in such a violent rage because they rejected you. And then there's this real juxtaposition of that with the fact he still sleeps with a teddy, and his dad's tucking the teddy in, and he's got like his little space bedding on, and there's a lot of elements that show like he is a child. Like what's gone wrong here? But it's just a very powerful scene with Eddie just crying, and it's really authentic and it's really genuine, and he's just apologising, and he's just like, I let you down, I should have done better. This episode is just seeing the perpetrator's family and the aftermath after that, and around a birthday as well, a significant date in the calendar. And this one really is like a PSA. I've said that about nearly every episode, but this one really is a PSA. Young men will watch this, and it should theoretically put the fear of God into them. I don't even believe in God, but to see the ruin and the chaos that is left for their own family, never mind the victim's family, their own family, in the wake of such an atrocious crime, and how they're treated by the neighbourhood and by peers and at school, etc., etc. It really does pack a punch, and I can imagine young boys watching this and it leaving an impression on them. It leaving an impression on them where they're like, okay, right, fuck that, this is crazy. Like I if they've even got thoughts like this, or if they don't have thoughts like this. But yeah, you feel for the family, they're going through it. Things are very tense, very tender, very raw, I would say. And there are parts where, if I'm honest, Mr. Miller's behaviour is far from exemplary. Obviously, you can't grip up a fucking kid and threaten to punch his lights out for vandalising your van. You can't. He gets a bit snappy with Manda in the kitchen a couple of times, and he's very domineering. Right, let's go out, we're doing this, it's my birthday, let's save the day. And his intentions are kind of all right there, but it's still just the way he does it. Manda's a bit of a wreck at times, crying, sobbing, trying to keep it together, as you can imagine. And you just, in all honesty, even Mr. Miller here, he's losing his head, but you feel for them, because they are going through it. They're being put through the ringer. You can only imagine how difficult, both legally and socially, the situation has been for the family. They touch upon it. They talk about the fact that they might need to move. Mrs. Miller wants to move, but Mr. Miller and Lisa don't want to move because they're worried that somebody else will find out, and then it's the same shit all over again. Except they've left the support network. What scant support network they have, they've left that behind, and it's a bold decision. But again, it's one that you can imagine this actually taking place. Your son has just brutally murdered a young female. What do you do? Do you move? Do you stay? Are you openly against your son's actions? Do you defend your son? How, as the perpetrator's family, do you move on from this? And you feel for them. Even when Eddie gripped up the kid and threatened him, I didn't actually feel a disgusting hatred to him. I just felt a pity. It's a multifaceted feature of the show, and the show does it really well, and it has done it really well. Because on the one side, it exposes Eddie as being a far less than perfect character. He has anger issues, he's lost control. We heard about him pulling the shed down in episode 3. But at the same time, the family are in such an extreme situation that you have to feel for him a little bit. You do. No one in their right mind is gonna throw paint all over their company van, their own self-employed van, like it's some sort of fucking protest from let's stop oil in an art gallery. He's lost his head, and it's difficult. But again, it also shows that side of things, where his angry side, it also shows that side of things. Like I say, we know from episode 3 that Jamie said he tore a shed down, and it kind of showcases that, and we get to see it now firsthand to an extent. The episode is poignant, I would say. It's left an impression on me. It's very deliberate in how it's played out. You flick from this nice, caring father where it kind of shows you that Mr. Miller isn't the problem entirely, but that he definitely could have done things better and differently, and he could have behaved better and differently. And it kind of hints at that throughout. Like, we see him as a caring husband and a caring father. We see him as a man who is, to some extent, even if it is because of the extremes of the situation, he is in touch with his emotions. And we see him treat the women in his life, with no violence. At the minimum, there's no violence. He's not hitting anyone. He's not stabbing anyone. But it shows that lack of self-control and that anger that he has, that is just expressed in vandalising his own van, or threatening to beat up a child, or hurling abuse at a member of staff for being an incel, which, I'm not entirely against that part, but you get the point. It didn't help his cause. It's not a good look. Or if it's just the way he's talking to his wife or his daughter. And it's just a very poignant episode, and the anger issues of the dad are touched upon, and they're almost front and centre, to be honest. It focuses mainly on Eddie, but it is so multifaceted that you can't help but think about different aspects of that. And it just works. Again, the single shot works. It's probably, in my opinion, the most claustrophobic episode of the lot. A huge portion of it is spent driving in a van and elsewhere, in a smallish kitchen and bedroom. There's not a lot of outdoor shots. For me, it's probably more claustrophobic than episode 3, but again, the single shot take makes it feel even more claustrophobic, because you feel like you're there, like you're traveling with them, like you're experiencing this with them. You almost feel like another member of the family sat, in the back seat or riding on the bonnet. Obviously not, but you feel that closeness to the situation, like you're with this family for this whole hour on Eddie's birthday, and it hits. And the single shot does that job again of allowing you to see everything, and it doesn't shy away, and it can't shy away. You can't hide from it. And I'll go back to what I said in the last episode, and I'm pretty sure I said it about episode 2 as well. I want to see more single shot content, please. This show has just made an unbelievable mark on what's possible with it in storytelling, in narrative, by using this one-shot technique, and the scope that it gives, and the environment it creates by using that technique, and it works. It creates a poignancy where you don't escape from anything. And the show never once attempts to escape from anything. But it doesn't spoon feed you answers, but everything's there. It's exposed, it's raw, it's powerful. So that's how I feel about it. That's why the single shot works. Now, I can sit here and I can rave on about the sound design again in the shop, in the garden, when he's trying to scrub his van off, and you can really hear it, but it's eerily quiet. The neighbours are watching across the street. Oh, have you seen anything, love? No, I didn't. Oh, you're a fucking cow. Like, you see that, and again, it kind of links to the anger issues, but again, just talking about the sound and distant, how quiet everything is. You're in the suburbs almost. You're in the quiet lands, but nobody saw nothing, because nobody likes them anymore. And that silence is literally deafening. It's a cliche, but yeah, you can talk about the soundtrack again. It's tense, atmospheric, sad, melancholic is the word I'd use. You can talk about the acting all day long. The best acting across this entire series. It's been incredible. And again, all 3 of those leading characters in this episode, again, they all deserve acclaim, because they made a huge impact, and they all delivered it well, and they were all convincing. Another convincing performance from a young actor again in Amelia Pease, playing as Jamie's sister Lisa. Incredible performance. Christine Tamarco as Manda, and then obviously you've got Stephen Graham as Eddie. All of them fantastic in this episode. Every one of them fantastic. Mum and dad, Manda and Eddie, had amazing chemistry on screen, amazing on-set chemistry. You can talk about anything And I said in episode 1, we can't really gauge how good Manda and Lisa, Amelia and Christine. I'm really bad with names. You got it. I said we can't actually gauge how good they are for their performances until we see more of them. Well, we've seen more of them. And there is no doubt they belong in this show. With the level of acting that we have seen across the board, there is no doubt they fit in. Amazing acting yet again. And I could talk about any point that I've made about anything in the last 3 episodes, and you could apply it to this episode. The sound design, the acting, the editing, the cinematography, the atmosphere, the one-shots, everything. It can just be applied across the board. It just tessellates. It just, you copy and paste it. Consistency is insane in this series. It's incredible. I'm not trying to cut corners. I just don't want to hammer it on too hard, because it's things that now, not to be too fussy, but it's to become expected of this series. By episode 4, I was expecting really good cinematography. Check, I got it. I was expecting fantastic acting. Check, I got it. I was expecting great sound design and soundtrack. Check, we got it. I'm expecting great script, great story. Check, we got it. And it's not, like I say, I'm not trying to cut corners and not talk about it, but we just know that now, and I'm impressed. And it's kept it up, and it's maintained stamina, and it's kept going all the way through to the end of episode 4. But I don't need to dwell on it for you. Other than, like I say, a big mention to the acting performances, because, we've not seen much of them. Briefly saw them in episode 1, but not in such a major spotlight. But other than that, we've only really seen Eddie and his acting, and even that's been brief at most. But yeah, I don't think we need to rifle on about it too much. That's just how I feel. I feel the whole episode was claustrophobic, moody, atmospheric, brooding. Yes, yeah, that's what we've seen all series, and it kept it up. It followed through everything the first 3 episodes have done, and it hit the nail on the head fantastically. But as I mentioned, the point of it was not to show the point of view of the victim or the victim's family. The point of it was not to spoon feed you answers in a court case where Jamie gets sent down and you see that. We mentioned this in our other videos, and Misha mentioned it in episode 2. A character in the show mentioned it in episode 2, that's not the point of it, because we're trying to show this is a side of the perpetrator's family now who are innocent. They are innocent. You use that term lightly, but they are innocent. But it's also trying to show, like, this is the society we live in. It's not looked at. It's not viewed. The victim is brushed off. It's a horrible crime. The victim is brushed off. We look at why. The local community might leave flowers or have a vigil, but the why is never answered, because the why doesn't matter. It's been and done, and it should have been prevented. And, that's kind of where it goes as well. The family's trying to be happy families. The phone call with Jamie in the van on the way home is especially strong. You really see firsthand now the effect of what Jamie has had on the family. Mrs. Miller and Lisa break down crying. Mr. Miller is silent, brooding. They get to the bedroom scene where they all hell just breaks loose. And that's probably one of the most powerful points. In the bedroom scene, Manda says to Eddie, I don't think it's bad for us to say we could have done more. Eddie makes the argument about the internet. He didn't know how much damage he could be doing sat in his room. We didn't know. We thought he was safe in there. We didn't know what damage he could do. And it's a kind of a decent point to make for older generational parents who don't understand the impacts the internet has. But it points it out that other than Jamie, truly, nobody is to blame. But I mentioned this last episode, and it's been confirmed for me. Truly, nobody is to blame other than Jamie. But Jamie's an adolescent. And Mr. Miller said it himself, everybody is responsible. The parents, to a lesser extent, even his fucking sister, his peers, online influencers, the government, the council, the schools, the teachers, the police. Everybody is responsible for Jamie, and simultaneously nobody is to blame other than Jamie. And yet, I think it's about time I wrap it up here. I don't want to just, go on too long talking nonsense or useless filler. We know stylistically what the show's going for and what the show has achieved in the previous 3 episodes, and you can just believe me, it carried it on. Powerful scenes, powerful writing, powerful acting, all brought together with this one-shot sequencing, great soundtrack, great sound design, and it just creates what I've said about every episode, this really moody, atmospheric, claustrophobic show that hits the nail on the head. There's still a lot of subtleties involved, but I'll admit the last scene is kind of a bit more on the nose, where they just outright say, we could have done better, and the dad's talking about the other influences, especially online. You can see the neighbours not taking too kindly 13 months later to them. They don't want to be seen, they don't want to be known. The incel guy at the store recognising him, saying, I'm on your side. And he is disgusting by that. He is. The youth is coming round, spray painting shit on the van, turns out the daughter knows him, and she then opens up about her experiences, about receiving shit for being Jamie's sister. She's not her own person anymore. It's almost taken the identity away from her. She's now just Jamie's sister, the murderer's sister. It's very powerful. Probably the best episode for me. It was so powerful, so emotional. It conjured up so much emotion from all angles, all characters, on and off the screen. A criticism is I would have liked to have seen more of the cop, the lead detective, and his son. I can't remember what his name is. Luke and Adam, that's it. I don't know why they didn't explain that more, they kind of left that open-ended but unexplored. It's kind of pointless to me to put it into episode 2. But if I'm honest, my criticisms of this entire series of this show, but particularly of episode 4, are pretty scant. That's about all I've got to say, and I won't say much more on it. But I do feel like some characters who were in episode 1 and 2, and they're never seen again. Episode 3 had, as we spoke about 4 characters in it, so that don't really count. I get why we wouldn't really see Bryony in episode 4. She was just there for 1 episode, and that was kind of laid out that way. But yeah, some of the other characters, I did regret not seeing their stories play out a little bit more, or a bit more background for them. A missed opportunity. I mentioned this last episode. A missed opportunity again for Luke to not speak to his son about his behaviours and how to be a role model. Him being a role model for a man. You can say what you want. You could say that could be a deliberate thing, He's not the greatest dad in the world, and he's quite problematic as an officer where, he immediately jumps down the whole Katie being a bully role. I get that. But I think it would have been poignant, and I think it would have been a really good way to continue to educate people and to showcase the situation we're in. Overall, I'm giving this episode a 5. Despite my minor criticisms, it doesn't actually do anything to this episode. It comes from the wider series where they could have explored things more. But this episode itself was just delivered expertly. But I am going to go ahead and give the whole series a 5 and give it top marks. I just think everything it did was fantastic. I might do a video where I kind of sum up the whole series and go a bit more in depth as like a series review, where I do talk a bit more about, the editing, the lighting, the sound design, which I've fucking raved about for the past 3 videos at least. I can't remember if I mentioned it loads in episode 1, but I might just do that, bring it all together and do a bit of a soft review on the whole series. Episode 4 is definitely best off just being viewed. If you've not seen it and you've listened to this whole video, you'll regret that. I assume most people have come here. I've come here to listen to me talk about it, and if you have seen it, you know what I mean. It was heavy stuff, and it was a great way to end this particular series. I say great for want of a better term. They couldn't have done it any better. They avoided played out cliches, i.e., just going to a court case episode. They avoided spoon feeding you everything again. And that last closing scene was just unbelievably powerful, unbelievably raw. It left me broken. Like I say, I got to the finish line. That's where I began crying. But it's just a good show. It's just a good show. And this episode in particular, I think, was aimed at younger men so they can see what the aftermath of those sorts of actions look like for their family. It's a cautionary tale. So the episode 4 is almost like a fable. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'm going to say thank you to the creators of Adolescence and everybody involved for bringing out such a raw and powerful show. I'm going to leave it at that for this episode. Even a couple of days later, I'm still reeling from it, but we are going to leave it at that. It's kind of got me down just talking about it. So I'm going to be watching and talking about a TV show called Scavenger's Reign next, which is an adult sci-fi animation that's not a comedy. So I'll be talking about that soon. But yeah, Adolescence is definitely one to watch, and it will be an award-winning series. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and check out the TV and film playlist for reviews. And yeah, thank you for watching.